Welcome back to the table. Today, I pray that wherever you are coming to the table from, wherever you're pulling up a seat, that this conversation, this time at the table is one for you, where we seek to pull back from the message on Sunday and press into the matters of life, where you can become equipped, where you can be encouraged. And for this particular time together, this season that we're walking through together, that you would be able to get help navigating your season that you are walking through right now. You see, on Sunday, we opened up together in a new book of the Bible together, and whenever we do in our context, it's always helpful for us as we are going to unpack the Word of God together and allow that to shape our lives, our Monday through Saturday and Sunday again, as we're really going to have the text inform our walks and our daily lives in each season that we navigate together through. We want to give some context. So this past Sunday, we opened up together in the book of Joshua. And as a series, as a time together, we are labeling this time in the book of Joshua as uncharted. You see the reason for that in the context. We see that Moses, the one who has been leading these people of God, has just died, and the promise that God had given originally to Abraham is not being able to be realized in how Moses will lead these people into the promised land. It will be passed to another, and that other is Joshua. But to give some clarity for why we labeled this series, this season that we're walking through together, uncharted, is because Joshua, though he was Moses' assistant all this time, one has always known slavery in Egypt. You see, we covered on Sunday, and just going to go over some highlights. Joshua, about the time that he is leaving captivity in Egypt, is roughly, most likely around 40 or so years of age. We see it give a specific detail regarding Caleb, which is one of the two spies that made it to the promised land. All of the other ones passed away in the wilderness, in the desert, as they were wandering around the 40 years. But Caleb and Joshua are the only two that will make it into the promised land. And it gives specifically context regarding Caleb, and that sort of informs how we see Joshua. So we believe him to be around 40 years of age when they left captivity in Egypt, where Moses led them out by instruction and passageway of God. So we see them traveling there in the wilderness for those 40 years because of their disobedience to God in his promise to them. So Joshua has always known being enslaved his entire life. And the people of God prior to that had been enslaved in Egypt for around 400 years. This is a people who have been ruled over for a long period of time. So even being outside of the captivity of Egypt, this being in bondage to Egypt, being ruled over by Egypt, is an area of uncharted territory. But outside of that, these people that Joshua and Caleb are walking with. Yes, Moses has just passed, but these people that Joshua is now called to lead, not only has he never known a time outside of slavery, outside of those 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, but now he's being called to lead the next generation of people into the promise that God originally gave to Abraham, a promised land that has not been realized to this point. But you see, Joshua is in uncharted territory himself, and now he is leading a people who are not a part of his generation. His generation outside of Caleb all died in the wilderness due to disobedience, and he and Caleb are the ones left, and Joshua is the one charged with leading people into this promised land. A task that, as you can imagine, would be difficult, a task that, as you can imagine, would be daunting on the horizon, a task that you can imagine would be one that Joshua, if you're him, you're thinking, am I able to walk into this new season? Am I able to walk into this unknown? Am I able to step up to the task of that which is uncharted? And you see, you may find throughout this time together that you are walking through your own uncharted season, where you're walking through moments or a season that is unknown to you at this moment. And I pray that as we walk together through the book of Joshua, as we see God's call to Joshua and his walking with these people, this next generation, and God's continued promise to Joshua, and Joshua's continued walking in light of that promise, in the midst of his realities, in the midst of his difficulty, following in light of a life, in light of God's promise, in a position underneath and walking in pursuit of that promise, in the midst of the unknown, the detail by detail. And you may find that, and it would be likely to find that in this series, in this walking together in life, and through the book of Joshua together, as we encounter that uncharted territory, that reality that God was faithful in the midst of, that call for those people to walk in light of God's promise in the midst of the unknown before them, you may find that you will be encountering your own uncharted territory, a season or realities that you've never walked through before, never encountered before, and don't have a lot of clarity in. Maybe for you, you see God's promises and you're walking in light of that, but for you, the details seem vague. The distance between where you are now, the season that you're approaching, and where God's promise fills in or carries you through in light of all of it and in midst of all of it. You see, you may not be there now, you may not be in an unknown now, but for a lot of us, it is very common week in and week out to be in a place where we encounter for the first time an unknown and uncharted, and for us, that calls into question, or that causes us to have the opportunity to reflect on how is the Word of God that we encountered on Sunday informing how in the world I'm walking in my Tuesday, or how I'm walking in my Wednesday, or how I'm walking out my faith in the midst of reality. See, Joshua and these people, as we walk through the book of Joshua, saw and knew and heard over and over God's promise to them. God's promise not to leave them nor forsake them, that He would be their strength and their courage. But they had a reality in front of them that called them to live in a position underneath the promise. And I pray that as we walk together through this uncharted season, maybe in your life or mine, that we would be equipped by the Word of God and by walking together through it all. And as I've encountered just this past week, there has been ways, and I encourage us in this season as well, understanding our position underneath and in light of God's promise, that we would be still considering how we can, in the midst of our uncharted, in the midst of the uncharted for the body that gathers at Sandy Springs, this new season that we're walking together in, I would encourage you to remember how we can be praying, how we can be positioning, and how we can be pursuing all that it is that God is calling us to in this season. And I pray for you that it would be true, as it has been true for me this past week, these past 2 weeks, as I'm going through a new journey, a new uncharted of my own, that God in His faithfulness and His grace would place people in your life that are going through uncharted territory of their own. And as you pray and as you position yourselves in their lives, that you would be able to pursue the opportunities of engaging and walking with their uncharted territory, as God is helping and being faithful to you in walking through and leading you through your own. And I pray that as we continue to come to the table together, that we would have opportunity to share and to rejoice in how He, in His faithfulness, is showing up through our willingness in our own lives, and in the lives that He is being faithful to allow us to intersect. I pray that your uncharted territory, your season that you're walking in, the season that you're about to walk in, that you would be helped by our times around the table together. Look forward to seeing you real soon.